All right, let's get right into it. When you think about the future of tech, you probably think Silicon Valley, right? Well, forget that for a second, because there is a massive, high-stakes economic transformation going down right now, smack in the heart of America. And it's all about the future of how we drive. And how big are we talking? Well, how about $13 billion? Let that sink in. 13 billion with a B. This isn't just some company setting up a new office. No, this is a full-on tidal wave of money flooding into one state, and it's completely redrawing the map for electric vehicles.
So the question you've got to be asking is, why Kentucky? Seriously, how does a state known for coal and old-school cars suddenly become the absolute epicenter of the EV revolution in America? It seems kind of random, right? Well, let's dig in and figure out exactly how this all went down.
Okay, so first up, Kentucky's $13 billion bet. This whole thing really boils down to one simple idea: a massive, all-in bet. You know, Kentucky is essentially pushing all its chips to the center of the table, wagering its entire economic future on this huge shift, moving from coal and cars to batteries and beyond.
And look, this is a historic pivot, but it's not like they're starting from scratch. Not at all. What's so smart about this is that Kentucky is leveraging its deep history in manufacturing. Think about it. They've already got the skilled workers, the supply chains, the factories. They're just retooling all of that know-how for a high-tech electric future. It's like they're upgrading the engine on a classic car, and it's happening at like lightning speed.
All right, so let's talk about building the EV heartland. Because this boom, it isn't just a bunch of press releases and fancy promises on paper. Oh no. Let's look at the actual projects driving this whole transformation, the tangible, real-world proof that's breaking ground as we speak.
And the scale here is just wow. I mean, just look at this list. You've got the monster Blue Oval SK battery park. That's a nearly $6 billion project with Ford and SK on, promising 5,000 jobs. Then Ford itself is dropping another $2 billion just to retool its Louisville plant for an EV truck. But it's not just about building cars. You've got Ascend Elements building a $1 billion cathode plant. Toyota is upgrading its famous Georgetown facility. Even Rivian's in the mix. It's not just one or two factories, it's the whole ecosystem.
So what's the payoff for all this? Well, the ripple effect is just staggering. Governor Beshear's team estimates these projects are going to generate billions in new revenue every single year. Think about what that means. More money for schools, for roads, for communities. It is a potential game changer for the entire state's economy, and it all comes back to this one big bet on EVs. But, you know, a transformation this huge, this fast, it's never going to be a perfectly smooth ride. So let's talk about the other side of the coin, the boom and its hurdles. Because with all this growth comes some very real, very significant challenges. It's really a story of promise versus problem. On the promise side, you've got this incredible boom. In places like Hardin County, new housing is popping up, new businesses are opening, schools are getting more funding. It's awesome. But then you flip over to the problem side. Global supply chains are still a mess, and let's be honest, the EV market can be super unpredictable. It really is a classic high-reward, high-risk game.
And hey, these challenges aren't just hypotheticals. We've seen some real bumps in the road. For instance, national EV sales took a dip in 2024, mostly because of high prices. And what happened? Well, it had a direct impact right in Kentucky. Blue Oval SK had to hit pause on its second plant. And then you've got the story of the AESC Gigafactory in Bowling Green. That was a promised $2 billion project that just got abandoned. It's a really stark reminder that in this game, nothing is ever guaranteed.
So this brings up a huge question. What does this mean for the actual workers? You know, the people on the factory floor. Well, the key word here is adaptation. If you're coming from a traditional auto job, you've got to learn new skills, stuff like battery tech and software. A great way to start is by exploring free online courses, just to get the basics down. Then you can look into Kentucky's state training programs, which give you that critical, hands-on experience that these new jobs are looking for.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit, because Kentucky's story is actually a huge piece of a much bigger national picture. What we're seeing is the rise of America's new battery belt. This is all part of a nationwide race to bring the future of car manufacturing back home.
And if you want to see who's leading the pack, just look at this chart. When you compare Kentucky to its neighbors in the South Central region, I mean, it's not even a contest. The state has just crushed it, pulling in the lion's share of all the big EV and battery projects. They are the undisputed leader in their region. Now, let's put that $13 billion into perspective. The total EV investment across the entire U.S. over the last 9 years, a mind-blowing $188 billion. So for Kentucky to have captured such a huge slice of that massive pie, that's a monumental win. It really shows you just how crucial the state has become to the entire country's game plan. Of course, you can build all the electric cars in the world, but if there's nowhere to plug them in, what's the point, right? So Kentucky is also powering the future by investing in the infrastructure to support this whole boom. They're dropping nearly $33 million to build 48 new fast-charging stations. That's what makes this whole transition actually practical for a regular person driving around.
So, that brings us to the road ahead. Where does Kentucky go from here? Well, the future is looking like a mix of incredible opportunities and some pretty big risks. And how they navigate that is going to define the state's legacy.
So as we look at the future outlook, you can think of it as a mix of green lights and yellow flags. The green light, the opportunity is massive. We're talking a potential for another $5 to $10 billion in projects by 2030, especially if trade policies continue to favor American production. But then you have the yellow flags, the risks. Global competition is absolutely fierce, and you just never know when a sudden change in government policy could flip the whole script overnight. You know, when you take a step back and look at the big picture, this is a story of adaptation. It's about so much more than just electric cars. It's a story of economic survival, of reinvention. Think about it. Kentucky has gone from an economy built on coal to one built on gas-guzzling cars and now to one built on batteries and EVs. It just shows an incredible ability to keep reinventing itself.
And that really leaves us with one final, very big question. Is what's happening in Kentucky, this idea of taking an old industrial foundation and using it to build a high-tech future, is that the new blueprint for the rest of American industry? Something to think about for sure.